In a world that's changing faster than ever, are your leadership skills keeping pace? This season, we uncovered the essential secrets to help you become a future-ready leader. From embracing uncertainty to empowering innovation, find out how the top leaders are thriving amid disruption. In this episode, I'm going to recap my favorite topics of season 13 and give you the actionable strategies to help you lead boldly tomorrow. Stick with us. Hey everyone, John here. 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 Welcome to the Leaders Leading Leaders podcast. Welcome everyone to the Leaders Leading Leaders podcast. I am your host, John Espinosa. We are at the end of another season. And these recaps are one of my favorite episodes to record as the season is ending and we're moving into another season. The seasons that we have normally correspond to the months. So we have 12 seasons a year. And one of the things that really, I think, intrigued me, and I hope it did you with this season, was what we talked about is going to get you ready. Developing future-ready skills. And that is important because we're always preparing for the job that we want 6 months, a year, 2 years from now. And that journey begins today. If you are not preparing yourself, if you are not preparing your team, if you are not preparing your family, your organization, your business, whatever that looks like, you're doing them a disservice. You're failing them if you are not equipping them with future-ready skills for them to thrive, especially in a time of uncertainty. Things change. When I was growing up, I can remember that when I think about change, when I was middle school, maybe high school, it took a while. It just felt like it took a while. And even as I got into my late teens, my 20s, I had kids at a very young age, and it was still a while before news got filtered down. Social media was just starting to kick off then. Cell phones were a big thing, but still, they weren't anything like they are today. The information was still in newspapers. It was still in print media. And I know those out there listening probably think, yeah, I'm dating myself. That wasn't too long ago. That was about 20 years ago that we were still using print media. I can remember we had Labradors and chocolate labs, and we used to breed these chocolate labs. I used to call the newspaper to put an ad in the newspaper for the puppies whenever we would have a litter of puppies. Imagine that. Imagine today calling the newspaper so you could put an ad. That's how people found things. There wasn't a Facebook marketplace, or even, I think at that time, eBay was going, but Craigslist was a big thing. And it was just getting going. So we're not too far removed. And think about it. If back then I didn't start learning computer skills, or I didn't start learning how to communicate nonverbally via text, where would you be today? That's all we do now is text, voice text, instant message each other on the various messaging apps, and our businesses, our teams, and our families are evolving faster and faster. So if you feel overwhelmed with the amount of information and the amount of change that's going on, you're not alone. These episodes, this season, was all about starting with leading yourself, making sure that you're developing yourself, you're continuously learning, to your family, making sure you're equipping your family with the necessary skills that they're going to need to succeed. There are degree programs in colleges now that won't be needed when people graduate. That's how quick the world is changing. And then our businesses. Are we future-proofing our businesses, our teams, to when that challenge does come? We are ready. We're ready to pivot. We're ready to address that challenge. Whatever that looks like, that starts today, leaders. That starts today, Go Be Great community. So let's recap some of my favorite topics that we talked about. And I would encourage you, if one of these interests you and you're in that spot, maybe in this first one, we talked about adaptability and agility. How adaptable are you? And get out your journals, write these down, because I want you to ask yourself these questions, whether it's in the morning when you're journaling or in the evening as you're winding down. I'm going to put some questions in here that are thought-provoking and that are really going to test to make sure, are you getting yourself future ready today? So adaptability and agility. In this topic, we talked about mastering change. Change is inevitable. I just gave you the story of, how print media turned into websites, turned into now social media. Things are coming at us in the speed of light. People's attention spans are anywhere from about 2.5 seconds to 7 seconds. Let that sink in. 2.5 seconds before either the memory or the mind starts wandering or they're on to something else. If you're really good and you practice mindfulness, you probably get up to 7 seconds. But even at 7 seconds, imagine how quick that our minds begin to wander. And then imagine when you have a big change coming upon yourself, whether it's impacting your family, whether it's impacting your business. It could be technology. It could be resources. It could be staffing. It could be evolving your business to an online platform. Whatever that looks like, it could be getting into the job market. That is change. So how are we managing that change? And it begins with us. It begins with us as the leader. It begins with us as parents. It begins with us as the business owners, the entrepreneur. How are we managing the changing environment? Did you put an ad out and it didn't do so well? Or a topic and it's not going over very well? You're going to have to pivot. Or maybe you put all your eggs in one basket and you failed. A change needs to be made. And failure is an option. It's okay to fail, but how quick, how resilient are you to bounce back? Resiliency is twofold. One, how we pick ourselves up. Two, how quickly we pick ourselves up. So when we talk about adaptability and agility, this agile approach of making sure that you keep an open mind and you don't pull heavily on your past experiences. There's lessons learned, but it's that rewind. And again, I'm going to date myself here, but remember when you go to Blockbuster? Yes, there was Blockbuster back then. I don't think there's any Blockbuster. You rent a VHS tape and you'd watch that movie. And then what would you have to do? You would have to rewind that movie before you took it back. Because guess what? You would get penalized if you took back the cassette that was not rewound. But in our lives, we rewind all the time. We rewind to our past failures. We rewind to that experience that didn't sit so well. We rewind to our childhood. We pull those experiences into the current state, and then we make decisions based on those. What we talked about in the agile approach was 1, stay current. Be where your feet are right now. Make decisions based on what the future environment looks like from today moving forward. Try not to look back and rewind your past experiences. Another thing, we talked about our family and having this growth mindset. The technology is evolving. Tools, jobs, there are things that in 5 years, people wouldn't have even imagined. Imagine, 5 years ago that the handheld phone would pretty much power or have as much power as our computers, our laptops. And now desktops are a thing of the past. 5 years ago, pretty much every office environment had a desktop computer on their desk. Now, laptops are the way to go. Processing power, the chips have gotten smaller. That was only 5 years ago. So what are we doing? How are we encouraging our families to have that growth mindset? And I'm not talking about these things to scare any one of you. I'm talking about them because we need to be mindful of them so we begin to future-proof ourselves and our families and our businesses starting today. So adaptability and agility. I want to take a quick break from our discussion today to mention a couple things. First of all, thank you for listening. Only 50% of our listeners are subscribed to our channel. Do me a favor, click on that subscribe button. It's going to allow our channel to continue to grow and give you updates whenever we get new episodes published. The second thing is our coaching program. People who want to work with me are looking to make a lasting change, level up, or get unstuck. I gave up on my dreams. I was a young parent, had to make a couple career changes. I went through some financial hardships. I had to learn how to flip my mindset and stay consistent. Our coaching programs are individualized one-on-one sessions where I will teach you a proven system and guarantee that you can reinvent yourself over and over again. If that sounds like something that interests you, head on over to thejohnespinosa.com and sign up to get more information. Now back to the show. The second topic that we talked about as far as future-proofing was IQ versus EQ. And this is traditional intelligence. This is our logic. This is where our reasoning comes from when you talk about IQ. And then EQ is that relationship management, the self-awareness that you're going to have. And we talk a lot about that on these podcasts and these episodes because it's very important. One of the things that I learned as a leader later on, I wish I had known it, day one, was the fact that people see and perceive things differently than you do. And it could be in a different situation. It could be in a different context. But flipping that camera around and putting yourself into somebody else's shoes that is looking back to you, it's that mirror effect. So as you look in a mirror, what do you see? That is important for us as leaders. One of the ways that we can increase our EQ, ask questions. Become curious. Number one way that I coach and I mentor people to be more curious because it increases our EQ. It lets others know that we're interested. It allows us to learn more about that individual and really start unpacking what's going on. Because again, back to the experiences, people rewind is the decision that was made based on a past experience. You'll never know unless you become curious and you start asking those good questions. So emotional intelligence, and we have a whole season on this. So again, put in the search, go back, listen to those lessons. Very, very important. The question I want to ask you is, when you're in a conversation, are you the most interesting person or the most interested person in that conversation? That's going to tell you a lot about IQ versus EQ. So write that one down. The third topic that we talked about was growth mindset and continuous learning. Here, again, as leaders, it is crucial that we have a vision big enough for our team, for their individual visions to fit in that. Sometimes as leaders, we get very, very hyper-focused on the day-to-day, and that's okay. But if you're an entrepreneur out there, or you're a business leader, you have a vision for your company. You have a vision for your business. Does everybody who works for you or under you or on your team, can they fit that vision into where you are going? People will support what they help create. Brendan Burchard says it the best. So are they helping create part of your vision? And is your vision big enough as a leader? A lot of times we limit ourselves. I always ask my team, I do this on a yearly basis, what's your vision for our organization this year? That allows me as a leader to understand my vision's too small. I need to think bigger. I need to think bolder. I need to have my moonshot vision. Very important when we talk about growth mindset. And then again, leaders are learners. We must be continuously learning. And nowadays with social media, with YouTube, with you just name it. You can simply query in Google or whatever your search engine is, and it will pull up articles, Reddit, videos. There is not a lack of information in today's society. It's important, though, for us to filter that information, but continuous learning. If you want to learn how to have crucial conversations or deal with conflict, there's dozens of videos out there. As an entrepreneur, if you want to learn how to increase your team or lead a team or build a team, there's videos out there. If you want to learn real estate, finance, whatever, how to start a podcast, there are videos out there. So as leaders, we need to be continuous learners. We need to be reading. We need to be watching either podcasts or listening to podcasts, and we need to be curious. And in order to be curious, we have to be learning. So Continuous learning ties back into that growth mindset. It allows us to recognize the limiting beliefs and then overcome those limiting beliefs. Put them in the past. Quit rewinding. A lot of this, again, flip that camera around. If you're asking somebody to do something, are you doing the same thing? We're real good at giving advice sometimes, but very rarely we take our own advice. So are you taking your own advice? That would be my question here. When we talk about growth mindset, when we talk about individual development, we coach on it, we mentor it as leaders. We talk to others about it. We talk to our kids about it. We talk to our family, but again, people will do as you do, not as you say. So check yourself. Am I following my own advice? Question to ask yourself. And then last but not least, this topic around ethical and inclusive leadership. We ended the month with this. And when we talk about future-proofing yourself for leadership, being inclusive and making sure that you are always leading with integrity and you have others' best interest at heart is going to future-proof you. There are some businesses out there, I get it. It's very tactical. It's day to day. It goes, 100 miles an hour. That doesn't give you a right to treat people poorly, to treat them unfairly, and to have a command and control leadership modality. It's not going to work for you. It might get you to where you're going pretty quick, but you are not going to sustain that same momentum. You're not going to sustain that same growth if you do not treat people fairly and you lead with integrity. I've been in a lot of organizations, and when we start to unpeel the reason why people are leaving, they have high turnover rates, employee engagement is down. It's because you have a leader in the organization that is very command and control mentality. They're making decisions despite the fact that people are giving them good information, and they see that. Your team, your company, your employees, your family will see that you are making decisions for your own good, and that's something that they're not going to get along with. They're not going to stand behind you, and when times get tough, they will leave. So one thing that we discussed was the 5 habits of ethical leaders, and one of my favorites in this 5 habit was the courage to act with integrity. So when times get tough, do you maintain your integrity? Do you lead with integrity? Integrity for me is doing what's right when nobody's looking. So that's the question here. Do you do what's right when nobody is watching you? The answer is yes. Good for you. If it's maybe, you have some areas to work on, and that's okay. Leadership is a journey. It's not a destination. Again, go back, pull up some videos on leading with integrity. John Maxwell has some great books that have to do with integrity. His last book talked about that as far as what you need as a leader to lead in today's ever-changing world. There are some organizations out there that they're struggling. They're struggling because they've gotten themselves into a particular situation that people don't want to work for them, and word travels quickly. So just ensure that, what you do as a leader is ethical, and the integrity of your leadership will outlast the popularity contest that some leaders try to get into. And we had an episode around respect trumps popularity. So again, are you that leader who sacrifices everything to be popular? We can't be popular as leaders all the time. I'm sorry. As parents, I'm a bad guy probably 90% of the time, but it's for the good of the organization. Sometimes you have to have those crucial conversations. You got to close the gap whenever performance is different than what the expectation is. I have high expectations for myself, and I carry those forward on my team, and my team knows that. That doesn't mean I lead with a command and control mentality, but I make the expectations known, and then we have conversations whenever those expectations are not being met. As soon as we possibly can. We can't let them go for 2 weeks and then have a conversation. It's just not going to work out for you. You can't always be the most popular leader in the organization, and that's tough. It was tough for me, and I had to learn a hard lesson. So make sure respect trumps popularity. People will respect you in the long run. And then last but not least, diverse voices. So, when we talk about a group think mentality and we're building our team as leaders, and it's natural for us to hire and surround ourselves with people who are like-minded, who agree with us in certain ways, our leadership style, maybe it's our politics, maybe it's a, decision that we made, whatever that looks like, it's natural for us to surround ourselves with those people. However, when you are needing to move forward, you're needing to innovate, you're needing to future-proof yourself and your company, you have to have diverse voices. You have to have everybody coming to the table, being able to voice their opinion. So it goes back to that respect, it goes back to you active listening. It goes back to being the most interested person rather than the most interesting person in the room whenever you need the information in order to make a decision. So all of this ties together when we talk about future proofing. This season, it was great. I'm getting goosebumps because I'm just thinking back at some of the episodes and the actionable strategies. So make sure if you've missed any of these and you're struggling in the area of adaptability and agility, go back and listen to those episodes on mastering change and having an agile approach. If EQ, emotional intelligence, is something that you struggle with, go back and listen to the episode IQ versus EQ in that relationship management piece. If it's around growth mindset or continuous learning, one of the things I like to do is I map out a calendar for my coachees and I have them identify where they're spending their time. If you are not developing yourself at least 10% of the day, you're falling farther and farther behind. So those episodes around leading with vision, empowering others, making sure that leaders are continuous learners as far as our team approach, making sure we innovate, checking for that team engagement, all of those things that go into continuous learning and growth mindset. And then last but not least, ethical and inclusive leadership. The 5 habits of ethical leaders. That was one of my favorite episodes that we recorded for this season. Respect trumping popularity. Leadership is not a popularity concept. And then surrounding yourself with diverse voices. I hoped you enjoyed listening to this season as much as we enjoyed creating it for you. Season 14, we're not stopping. We're rolling right into season 14. You're not going to want to miss season 14. Make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. Make sure that you're taking these actionable steps and you're being an active learner. You're already spending the time listening to the podcast. So now figure out what day 1 is and then put it in action and don't miss 2 days in a row. I believe in you. Go be great. Talk to everyone later. Bye-bye. If you like what you're hearing, do us a favor. Click on that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up or leave a comment. That lets us know that what we are putting out benefits you. If you want additional information or resources or learn how to work with me, head on over to thejohnespinosa.com because when we become better versions of ourselves, it helps us get others to where they're going. Go be great. Talk to everyone later.